Welcome to Happy Feet Connect, a space where local community comes together to talk all things happy and healthy. Here we learn, help, and inspire each other by sharing knowledge, life-changing stories, services, and real vibes. Join us to find your happy feet in life. Tune in and let's connect, my friends. Hello, beautiful people. Kay here from Happy Fit. This month of October, we are raising mental health awareness. Connecting as a community, I have reached out to some local agents to engage in powerful conversations around this huge topic. All right, and today I'm super excited to introduce you to Jemaine Finlay.
Hello.
Yes, so good to have you. Thanks so much. So Jemaine, a little bit about you. She studied a Bachelor of Health Science at Endeavour.
Correct.
Did I say it correct?
You did.
Graduating as a naturopath last November.
Mm-hmm.
She's also a personal trainer and have been coaching at F45 for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
In addition, Jemaine is a certified NLP practitioner, which stands for
Neuro-linguistic programming.
Thank you for saying. I wouldn't know. Neurolinguistics, something like that. Which is essentially modality that works for self-talk and belief patterns, emotional release techniques to create positive change in behaviors, perspectives, and health.
Mm-hmm.
So your passion lies in women's health and empowerment.
Yeah.
Coming from your own health journey and frustrations with the medical system after coming off hormonal pill,
Mm-hmm.
birth control.
Yeah.
Hormonal birth control
Yeah.
many years ago. So you've grown extremely passionate in educating women on body literacy and self-awareness to improve their health. So while studying, Jemaine worked for several years as a practice manager in a fertility and PCOS clinic, where she was also the weight loss consultant of PCOS patients.
Mm-hmm.
And after graduating, until only recently, you've been working in a women's health and family naturopathic practice in Netherlands.
Yeah.
But have now just finished to go all on your own venture.
Yes.
So what a great bundle of knowledge and skills to be able to help other women. I am so excited to talk about all this. All these. So how we would like to know, I have actually 5 quick initial questions for you.
Oh,
Okay, that is a
on the spot.
surprise.
Okay.
You didn't know
I
about
did not
those.
know about this one.
Okay, so they're just 5 personal little questions.
Okay.
Just to break the ice.
Yeah.
Okay, go. Number 1. What makes you smile?
Oh, if you know me personally, you know I don't stop smiling. I get called Smiley. I even have it written on my wrist, one of those tattoos that you regret.
Oh.
But I think just life. My dog is 100% my go-to if I need a little pick-me-up. I've got a little border collie and he's gone through his own health journey and now he's getting his life back and he's becoming a little puppy again. So he kind of brings my light every day. So here's my smile.
Sweet.
My smile trigger.
Your smile, your puppy. Beautiful. What is your favorite physical exercise or body movement?
Oh gosh, I do everything. I love weights and intense, like I do F45 and I do CrossFit. I love yoga and I'm now I have the philosophy of just honoring where you're at and not being stagnant in kind of a dogmatic approach to anything in life. Where I'm currently at, whether it's an age thing or just self-awareness, but I'm starting to resonate more with a bit more flow style movement. There's actually a course, a beautiful lady I'm going to collaborate with in some future programs, and she does dance coaching to immerse the masculine and feminine energies of the body.
Wow.
A lot of it is teaching about like the pelvic flow and pelvic movement, and it's very sensual, and you learn to touch your body and create body awareness. So that is something that's resonating with me at this time in life. Ask me in another couple of months, who knows what it will be.
Oh, you keep us informed.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, next question. What do you do to relax or release stress?
Beach. Beach is my go-to. Ever since graduating, I notoriously was known for being stressed and busy. So Since graduating, I've made it a ritual before I start my day. I do my workout, I take an hour walk along the beach with my dog, and I do not start my working day until I have done that. So the beach is definitely my go-to stress relief for sure.
Oh, beautiful. Yes, I think it is for so many people.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of getting there. Do you live close by the beach?
Yes, I'm quite lucky to be surrounded by water. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What do you do for fun?
I feel like this is something I've asked someone recently. I think this is a challenging question for a lot of people. Notoriously, I have socially deprived myself, being kind of a high striver and studying and a workaholic and everything else. So I'm now at a part in my life where any moment that I have free, I love to surround myself with people, whether it's going hiking. Again, coming from student background, not having a lot of money kind of stops you from participating in ways that, all the rest of your friends are, going out on weekends and everything. So I've learned to really love getting out in nature, going for a hike, going to the beach, making the most of the free resources that we have that, knock everything off the list. So you're looking after your health, physical activity, movement, time in nature, and that's kind of my fun and my thrive.
Okay, that's awesome. Very healthy fun.
Yeah.
Last question, and that's my favorite one because I'm very passionate about food, and so you are. What does your happy feet meal looks like?
Oh,
so
it's meal.
Super healthy, but super yummy.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I have so many.
I bet you do.
Yeah. I love kind of like poke bowl kind of things where you've got there's this gourmet deli down the road from my work up at the clinic, and they do this one where you've got either your seared tuna or chicken, but then you've got cabbage, you've got some edamame beans, you've got some brown rice, and you've kind of got all your little components, and it comes with this beautiful little Japanese dressing, and it's so delicious.
Yeah.
So that, otherwise quick and simple. I just love some broccolini cooked in olive oil with some almond, salt and pepper. That is just without a doubt good stuff. So,
wow. You would eat that every day?
Yeah, I love it. Or even eggs. I don't think you can go past a good omelette, really.
Eggs.
A good omelette, and you can always clean the fridge out of leftovers, so that too is another weak point for me.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, now can we get back to your story?
Yeah.
And how did you get to do this amazing work? How did you choose that path? If you had any experience associated with it, or anything that you would like to share with us?
So I don't actually feel like I chose this path. I didn't even know what a naturopath was when I enrolled into my degree, to be fair.
Okay.
Yeah, I came from a background of hospitality, and I always thought that I would own my own restaurant. And I worked in many venues from Margaret River right through to North Beach and kind of a lot of places in between. And I got to a point when I came back to Mandurah, I was working at a venue, and it really tested me and pushed my limits, and I knew that my stress levels were at its peak. It was making me very unwell mentally, emotionally, physically. At that time, I was seeing an incredible personal trainer, Steve Morley, who is I'll give him a little shout out,
go for
it. A strength coach down here in Mandurah and Rockingham. So this would have been about 6 years ago, and I was working, training with him early mornings, doing 12 to 14 hour days, working right through to early hours of the morning, and then prioritizing exercise over sleep and still getting up and rinse and repeat. And when I hit burnout in the restaurant, I thought, I need another career move. This isn't working for me. I can't burn myself out for someone else's profit. So I was really inspired by Steve. I decided to do personal training.
Okay.
So I did my certification through the Australian Institute of Fitness. Started in the gym environment, and I learned very quickly that that whole aesthetic feel in the gym was not for me. For some reason, I was just doing my work experience at the time, and I seemed to have this magnetic attraction to women who had just had gastric sleeve surgery or bypass, and that is way out of the scope of a personal trainer. So these women are just told, okay, so we've done the surgery, now you just got to exercise and lose all the excess that you're holding.
Yeah.
But post-surgery, you're not consuming enough food to be able to maintain physical. Like I had ladies that were telling me pushing a trolley in a supermarket, they would nearly pass out because they're just not consuming enough in the early stages. And when they're put in front of a personal trainer who doesn't have this knowledge or education on how to work with people like that, it's very basic knowledge that you get in a personal trainer certification.
Yeah, that's true.
It was scary. And I felt like, you know, for women to get to this point in their life, there's a much deeper connection, a mind-body connection that needs to be dealt with as well. I had a client at that point, he was an 18-year-old, about 165 kilos, and he had been through Fitness Pack with various personal trainers who just wanted him to do the linear push-pull weight style movement, and no one was listening to him. So he would throw out hundreds of dollars on personal trainers because he wanted help, but he didn't enjoy it. So he wouldn't see the package through, and he'd just be throwing out money and not seeing it to the end. And I asked him, like, when you were lean, what did you enjoy doing? And he loved dancing. He loved yoga. Like, this is exercise, but no one would qualify that for him. And, you know, he had diabetes, and through healthy movement and just a bit of education on self-love and, you know, things like caffeine and study stress and everything, we managed to reverse his diabetes. We got him past pre-diabetic like criteria with his bloods, right back down into healthy reference ranges. And it was that point where I just thought, I can do something so much more meaningful. I was going to go and study nutrition. At the time, I was also doing fly-in, fly-out work. And it was through speaking with one of the coaches up on a mine site who had just qualified as a nutritionist. Okay. And she said, look, to be honest, if I could go back in time, I would be a naturopath. Because it's so much more comprehensive. We get nutritional medicine education as well as botanical medicine. And you learn a little bit more deeper into the physiology, pharmacology, and everything else that's a part of the medical world as well. So that's what pulled me in, and here I am today.
Exactly. I know. I had the same idea when I did my Cert 4 and started working with the clients. I just thought, no, you need so much more knowledge to be able actually to help people in, you know, on that level. Yeah, and that's and I thought, oh, I can't do another 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Thinking if it's nutrition or naturopathy, and I thought, hang on, who is over there? So that's how I found you.
Absolutely, collaboration is how we do it.
Yes,
right?
and then that's probably how the idea of the whole project came up. You know, just thinking, we already in this community have all these amazing people who are doing the work, who have done the studies, who have experience, who. So there you go. I'll just leave it to you.
Yeah, and girl, you never stop learning. Like, no. I feel like even doing a degree didn't even touch the surface. It's just, you know, you find something that you're passionate in, and then you feel compelled to just reach for whatever information you can find out there. So it's an ongoing journey once you find your passion. So you never stop learning.
Yeah, and you learn, you know, from your clients as well. Exactly. Every time you have a new client, it's something different about you. So you go digging into the new research and trying to help, I guess.
100%.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We learn that through the experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it's... You can learn from a textbook or you can learn from experience, and every single person is unique in their own way. So to be able to have that interaction and learn from that is just so much more empowering. And you know, it's truth. You can genuinely help people in that sense as well. So.
Yeah. So we just need to reach out. We're here in Mandurah, just around the corner. So we just start reaching out to each other.
Exactly, and utilising this beautiful community that we have down here.
Absolutely, and we just, so many people don't have any idea of what services are available.
Yeah,
because some people are not on Instagram or Facebook.
That's exactly.
So there you go. Share around some love. Okay, so there you go. In your practice, while you were still studying and seeing clients as well, what are the common women's struggles?
So for me, I tend to have ladies gravitate towards me that are coming off the pill or suffering the aftermath of being on the hormonal birth control pill. Acne is a big one. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS. That kind of started my kind of delve into the area of women's health. Endometriosis. There's just so much. For me, I am very passionate in menstrual awareness because your menstrual health and your hormonal cycles that happen every month, they're essentially like a health report card. If they go missing, if they're really heavy, if they're painful, then that is an indicator that there is something deeper going on. So it's actually, a lot of people don't realize this. When we look at vital signs, when you go to your GP and they test your blood pressure and, you know, all of your different vital signs, your period is actually considered a vital sign. It's the 5th vital sign. And we just don't have, you know, much awareness on it. In recent years, there's starting to become a little bit more focused around it. But sadly, up until this point, the last 50 years, we've just been kind of told it's period, you know, it's just a period, it's nothing, you've got nothing wrong with you, you just got a low pain tolerance, or it's all in your head. And women had to just suck it up. You know, in the 50s, women would go through this and they just had to cover it up with Coke. Like, it's just the way women have just been told to suck up their pain and soldier on. And so my mission, I guess, is to bring this to light and create an open conversation about periods, because I have people who come into my office who are trying for a baby and they don't actually even know. No one at any point in their life or their fertility journey has told them there's only about a 4 to 6 day window where they're actually fertile, and the other 28 to 30 days of their cycle, they're not fertile. Yeah, we're popping medications that we take daily or having implants put in that pump out consistent hormones for the sake of preventing fertility over a 4 day window. We can't get pregnant outside of that window.
Yeah, no, it's very small, is it?
And you know, women who, you know, they might have a FIFO partner. So if you consider within 28 to 30 days, we have that tiny window where we can actually conceive, and their partner's doing FIFO, and you know, they've been trying for 6 to 12 months, but nothing's happening, and they're being told, you know, infertility, you've got to go down the route of IVF, and it may just be poor timing, but nobody is educating or having this conversation, which just, as you can see, fires me up quite a lot.
No, that's actually awesome. It's good to know that there are people you can go to talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there are, and that's kind of the space that I want to create, is just an educational platform where women feel safe to talk amongst each other of their experiences, and you know who to ask questions. I mean, we get to a point where, you know, during our teens it's embarrassing to talk about, but then we get to a certain age where we're in our 30s and we come off the pill, or we're just ready to conceive, and it's kind of at an age where we think, well, I should know, so I shouldn't ask because I feel silly if I ask now and I don't know it. So no one asks the question, because who do you talk to?
Yes, please ask the question.
Ask the questions, that's what we're here for.
Yes, so if you want to talk about something that's uncomfortable, Jemaine is your jam.
That's what us naturopaths do. We talk about poo and periods.
Yes.
That's what we love.
I know, that's good. But we need to start talking about it.
Yeah.
Honestly, it is so important.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about my poo right now. We might talk about it later in privacy. Yes. So, as a naturopath, you primarily deal with patients who have chronic diseases. Do I get it right? And if so, what is the difference between chronic and acute disease?
Yes. So, chronic illness is probably the biggest killer these days, unfortunately. The difference between the two, acute illness is quite severe and immediate onset, like a rapid onset. You know, things, if you break your arm, or an asthma attack, or you know, things like that. And this is where the divide between a GP and a naturopath should connect, because there's only so much that a GP can do in the short window of time they have in their doctor's office, which is governed by Medicare and everything else. And you know, the acute care, as a naturopath, that's out of our scope. Well, I mean, we can help, but they should be going to see a primary care physician for that kind of thing. Chronic disease is, you know, things like diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, all of these kinds of things. They're a disease that is deep-seated. It's taken a very long time, a very slow progression. It might not be as severe in terms of pain and inflammation that we can see, that we would typically think like, oh, hot, or like burn, or cut and blood. But it is a low-grade manifestation that happens within the body that occurs over time. And so when we look at the chronic diseases that we face today, you can, without a joke, kind of pinpoint all of them down to our lifestyle. the things that we're eating, the chemicals that we're exposed to, our stress exposure, sleep, all of these things are what are contributing to chronic disease. And you go back decades ago and the human race was being wiped out by infection, polio, and all of these kinds of things. And thankfully, medical advances have, brought out the technologies that have managed to kind of help us overcome that. That's no longer an issue for us anymore. And now the biggest killer are things like cardiovascular disease and, these diseases and conditions that as society we need to be educated on the role and the impact of what we're doing in our day-to-day life that's contributing to these.
So could we treat a chronic disease with lifestyle changes? And another question is how our lifestyle affects our hormones, because this is what I believe you do in research and this is connected to your work. Yes, and what could be the pillars of the lifestyles? So can we look at a few pillars of the lifestyles that we all could try and,
absolutely
make some changes?
Yeah, so when I say obviously that we work in the field of chronic disease, I'm not saying that, if you have cancer, you need to see a primary care physician. It needs to be an integrated group of people that work collaboratively in the care of that. And I don't dismiss, conventional medication in these areas either. They're definitely needed. But primary focus is, the way I view it is, if you're not changing the environment that brought a person there, then you can give them all the medication under the sun, but it's going to still be there, So if you can, when you asked about the pillars of health, things like time in nature, exposure to sunlight, the foods that we eat, sleep quality. Sleep is a big one in today's day and age because we have so many shift workers and FIFO workers, and our body works on a circadian rhythm. Primarily, I look at everything from an evolutionary perspective, and primarily our body responds to the day and night cycles. So certain hormones such as melatonin, light comes through the retina. During darkness, we increase our melatonin, and that is the hormone that helps us sleep. And melatonin is a powerful, incredibly powerful antioxidant in the body as well. They use it in some cancer treatments.
Is that right?
Incredible antioxidant.
Wow.
If we're exposed to blue light, which is our telephones, our TVs, our computer screens and everything like that, then we're never going to get sufficient melatonin production. Some people go, oh, but I sleep fine, it doesn't affect me. You might fall asleep and get your 8 hours of sleep, but you may never get into that deep REM cycle of sleep. That is when you kind of rejuvenate and repair your body. So from what I've seen and experienced, as well as what I've seen in the research, is people who are shift working nurses are the biggest candidates for cancer risk, purely because of the disruption of that circadian rhythm. I've actually seen in clinical practice PSA, which is your prostate-specific antigen for men, which is the antigen that comes up when we're looking at things like prostate cancer.
Yeah.
I had a gentleman in the final year of my clinical prac, and he had actually even identified that when he would fly in from shift work, his PSA was 3-fold higher than the normal reference range. And then he would have a 4-week stint at home, he would get it retested, and it would come back to just above reference range. He was still in a great risk of prostate cancer when we looked at all his markers, but seeing that dramatic fluctuation in result of coming off shift work where, our body has been designed to sleep at nightfall and wake at day, and he's on the reverse cycle of that. And when we go deeper than that, all of our organs in our body and every cell in our body has its own circadian clock as well. So your pancreas that releases insulin in response to, diet and that kind of thing, it governs our metabolism of our food. Your pancreas regenerates at around 9 o'clock. Traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, use the clock as a primary kind of indicator of what's going on with the different organs. So if we're eating late at night at 9 o'clock, or we're getting up and having a midnight snack, the pancreas really shouldn't be doing anything. That's its recovery time where it should be kind of preparing. And instead we've got it pumping out all this insulin, and it just throws off all the other cells in the body. So there's a lot where in the human race at the moment and the modern dynamics that we live in, we're just going against the way our bodies have been naturally programmed. And yes, over years and decades, we will adapt to that.
I was
But
about to
yeah,
ask, can we adjust to it? Because
In the
it
scheme,
seems to affect other people more than the others. Yeah.
And in the scheme of evolution, where we are at in our modern day is still relatively new. So we're still adapting and adjusting, and our primary biochemistry is still kind of adapting to that. And people might say they're not affected, but if you have a look at some blood markers and everything, you'll see that they are. And 80% of chronic diseases that we're looking at today result from inflammation. And, you know, like what we said when you asked the difference between acute and chronic isn't necessarily something where you're symptomatic. You can be living in it and you may have low energy, feel unmotivated, you know, have a short temper, little things that you think, you know, it's just my personality, or it's just, you know, a shitty day, or you've got all these excuses to blame, can be telltale signs of underlying inflammation. And if left undealt, that's when over years it can manifest into, you know, decreased cellular function and then dis-ease of the body. So
I think fatigue is a really big one recently. Many people. I used to feel fatigue maybe about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at my diet a bit more. I tried the paleo way. It didn't really work for me. I still felt fatigue. I didn't feel any difference in 30 days, but I had a go, you know, and then I just brought it back to just sort of balanced everything in moderation, and I started doing more exercise. That's what I noticed that I think actually helped me to get over that fatigue. How bizarre.
Yeah, exactly right. And there are different forms of fatigue. It can be resulting from toxicity, or it can be resulting from, you know, hormone irregulation. It can be resulting from nutritional deficiencies and poor diet, inflammation. And that's where we come into, there's no diet that's going to suit everyone either. You know, paleo is this great raved about diet, but not for everyone. A lot of women even lose their menstrual cycle to paleo and keto style diets.
Yeah.
So we can't just kind of get infatuated and stuck on, you know, a healthy diet idea because it works for the majority. It's kind of trial and error for ourselves, right?
Yeah. How do we find something like a diet or a lifestyle that actually works for us?
I think intuitively we know, as a human race, we've become very disconnected from our intuition, and we often know. We live primarily these days, and I say we, I speak in a whole, and not everyone, but you know, you look at the modern day and counts for most people, are living in a stressed and reactive response. So when you're stressed, the role of cortisol is everyone blames cortisol for your stress response, right? But cortisol doesn't make you stressed. Life makes you stressed, which cortisol helps you adapt to the stress. So cortisol dumps fats and sugars into your bloodstream to give you energy to fight or flee under the stress response. It makes you more alert, and your brain has a higher memory capacity during those times of stress, so that you can remember how to get out of danger when it comes around again. And we're kind of, when you consider all of the different changes that are happening within the body under that hormone stress, that hormone cortisol under the thing of stress, we then start to have a look at, we start to act reactive because our body's in a fight or flight response. It perceives danger. So whatever you do, it's not thought out or well calculated. So then we look at the foods that we turn to. The brain is saying, I need a primary source of energy to get me out of trouble. Sugar, caffeine, stimulants that are going to keep me alert so I can get out of this danger. And you know, stress isn't anymore just an acute bear chasing after us. It's the financial stress, the fights with the husband, the kids that are always hanging around, the boss that you don't get along with. And so we're constantly reactive and on edge and reaching for all these highly stimulating foods, and internally it's slowing everything down and really fatiguing us. And you know, that's where all this mental health and everything comes to light as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So do you think we need to relax a little bit more? How do we deal with stress? Like, what is the other pillar of the lifestyle that we need to get more in?
Stress management is number one protocol on every patient that I see.
Okay.
It is, when you have a look at the underlying premise of what stress is, the response that is happening due to stress in the body, it is the root of all disease. And I can confidently say that, even infection, because when you are stressed, cortisol suppresses your immune function, and that's why we now have synthesized that concept and made steroid drugs. Like immune suppressants and steroidal anti-inflammatories are designed to suppress the immune system, and our body has its own internal pharmacy, and that's exactly what cortisol does. So if you are someone prone to recurrent infections and everything like that, you know, stress is a big component in that. Stress is, you know, chronic disease, obesity, cardiovascular disease. When you think about all that fat and sugar dumping into the bloodstream, it drives up insulin resistance, and then we get all these metabolic diseases. Alzheimer's is, you know, type 3 diabetes. It's an insulin resistance in the brain.
Is that right?
Yeah. So, you know, when we have a look at what's happening in response to stress, I can confidently say it will underlie most diseases. And, you know, stress, the quickest way you can snap yourself out of stress is deep breathing. So we have these two nervous systems, your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system, fight or flight or rest and digest. When you're in fight and flight...
Which one is which?
Fight or flight.
Just for dummies like me.
Yeah. Fight or flight is like when you are stressed. So you've either got to, stress response happens so that you can fight your way out of danger, or you can run.
Systems?
So that's going to be your sympathetic.
Sympathetic.
Yeah.
Fight or flight.
So when you're in fight or flight, all your energy and circulation is mobilized to your muscles and your peripheries, your hands, your limbs, your brain, your heart, to give you the blood pressure to get yourself out of danger and to run, make you more alert, make you more kind of memory receptive so that you can get your way out of danger again. All of your energy is diverted from your vital organs. So your body has to decide stress or reproduction. And stress is your survival response, right?
Yes.
So if you're living under constant stress, the body doesn't care about you making a baby, because if you make a baby and fall pregnant, you've got to live in this stressful environment and support yourself and an infant for 9 months until you can give birth, right? So why put that risk on the table? Completely shut down reproduction. Rest and digest is on the opposite scheme of things, because while we're stressed, there's no circulation going to the digestive system.
Yeah.
So bloating, flatulence, all these gut issues that we're having, no one's mindfully eating anymore.
No.
So they're eating on the go when they're stressed. All the food's sitting in their gut and fermenting, and rather than digesting, it's just creating all this imbalance and inflammation in the gut. On the other spectrum, when we're in our parasympathetic nervous system and we're in rest and digest, all of our circulation and energy flow go to our reproductive organs, our digestive tract, and it allows us to digest and assimilate all our food. It allows for healthy fertility. The body feels it's safe to conceive. So the quickest way you can flick between these two energy systems is a moment of deep breathing. And what I get my patients to do quite often, there's all different techniques, but for the modern day person who doesn't want to sit and meditate or doesn't have time and all the rest of it, I find 4 triggers in your day that you do every single day. It might be every time you get a red light, every time you're doing the dishes, every time you're waiting for your takeaway coffee. They're your trigger to do 4 deep inhalations. So I say breathe in for the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, release for the count of 4.
Should we do it together now?
Yeah, we can. Now, one thing I will add to that, and for everyone watching at home, when you breathe, have a look in the mirror and see what your body does. Because a lot of people who are stressed, they're going to breathe
and lift shoulders.
Right? Yes. And so where do we feel stress? When we're stressed at work, we feel a lot of tension in all these muscles up top. But when we breathe, really your diaphragm should be opening, so your tummy should be expanding. A good breath should be tummy expands, blow it out. And so this is where you kind of get all this tension under stress up here, because we're shallow breathing.
Yes.
What happens when we try to get as much oxygen in as quick as we can.
Yeah.
So to have these regular triggers during the day where we can do deep belly breaths, no one has to know. You can be in public and do it and no one will know. And that will instantly switch you into rest and digest and out of fight and flight. Biggest tip, biggest takeaway.
That's a magic trick. Should we give it a go?
Sure.
Are you going to count or am I going to count?
I'll count if you like. We'll put our hands on our belly and keep ourselves accountable.
Okay.
Alrighty, so in for the count of 4. Hold for 4. Release for 4. So it's as simple as that. No one even needs to know that you're doing it. And when you do it enough, you start reoxygenating all the cells. Because what Ben was talking about fatigue earlier, right? When you think of all the different cells in your body, if you're shallow breathing, you're not getting much oxygen deeper into the respiratory system and enough power to circulate it through the whole entire body. So essentially we're starving our body of oxygen, which is why we feel so tired. We're not getting that oxygen carried through the body.
Yeah, I know. I even with my clients or participants or people I met, I always say your breathing is so super important. When you exercise, when you drive the car, it could be just cooking, anything, doing anything. We get all tight. Did you notice how sometimes when we drive?
Yeah.
Because we're concentrating on the road, we're really like...
And how many people are eating while they're driving these days, right?
Is that right? Is it even legal?
Well, I don't know. I actually saw someone at the traffic lights the other day who had their knees on the steering wheel eating their breakfast while they were driving. I thought it's not going to be long until you get pulled over.
I know, that's so
But this
bad.
is the rat race we live in these days. This is somewhat why I was kind of happy for COVID in a sense, that it's allowed people to pull themselves out of the rat race and just really kind of focus a little bit more on self-care, be forced for silence for a little bit.
Yeah, but it didn't take long to go back to the craziness, honestly. And I don't mind people being busy. You know, I actually love being busy myself sometimes. But yeah, it's just noticing and checking in with yourself. I reckon this is what it is important, especially when you drive. And I notice it with myself a lot, you know. I just so many times go, you know, relax, you know, shoulders back, lift the chest, tuck the chin.
And if you're somebody who frequently sighs as well, like if you're someone who throughout the day you're like, and you might become aware of it now that I bring it to the attention. But that is your body going, I'm not getting enough oxygen. Like it's forcing you to kind of, so use that as a trigger to think, oh, I need to oxygenate my body. Let's do some deep breathing right now.
So how many breaths?
I just say, just for sake of ease, I just go 4. There's no scientific backing to it, but I just think if you have 4 triggers in your day and you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, release for 4, and do it for 4 cycles, super easy to remember.
There you go. Just remember, 4 cycle breath.
4 cycle breath.
4 times a day. Please put it on the phone. Reminders.
Absolutely.
Oh, one of you know watches, those smart watches people get.
Yeah.
So
you know, people get reminders to drink water, breathing. You know, what happens if you don't breathe? You die.
Yes. We need to drink water, breathe.
Absolutely.
Yes, move. So many things we have to do though. Sometimes it is so overwhelming, I think, for people, you know, especially people who are working. They have to work hard to support their families, you know, and how do we sort of find that balance in terms of finding time?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we can afford all to do 4 breaths a day, obviously.
Yeah.
But saying something like exercise.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about exercise. In fact.
Yeah.
How is that impacting our bodies, our hormones?
Yeah, and again, just like a diet, exercise is very unique to the individual as well. Women get stuck in this pattern that, you know, we have to do high intensity exercise every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And our bodies aren't designed for that. If we look at the menstrual cycle, we fluctuate on a week to week basis. We're going to have times where our hormones are at our peak and we can tolerate that. We're going to have times where our hormones are at a complete low in the week leading up to the period. And during those times, all our body needs is to do some yoga and some long beach walks and maybe some dance flow like what I was talking about at the start of the video. But we don't tend to honour that, and we just keep pushing our body despite feeling tired. And, you know, a big word that I generally have a word that I stick with every month and I use it quite frequently. And at the moment, my word is honour. And I always say, like, if I've even gone into an F45 session and started the first couple of sets and just thought, this is not where I'm at today, and I'm going to honour that. And I left and I went and did yoga, and I felt so incredibly invigorated and energized afterwards. So it's honouring where the body's at, but movement is important. They've done research to show that I think it's for every 6 hours, what is it? Maybe it's every 60 minutes of sitting, must be 6 hours of sitting, equates to the same risk factor of smoking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, seating.
Yeah. So even if it is like, you might think, oh, you know, I sit at a desk for 8 hours, you can get up and move, or even just kind of every 15 minutes, just do a walk around your desk, or do some big power moves or some stretching of some sort. If you're not someone who can go to a gym or anything, people think exercise means I have to go to a gym, but it's not. To just wake up that 5 minutes earlier and go through a flow sequence. It might be, you know, touching your toes up to the ceiling, or doing like, you know, a typical sun salutation from yoga, and just doing 3 cycles of that before you start your day, and just lubricating your joints, like elongating your muscles, moving any stasis that's been sitting stagnant in the body. That in itself just does incredible things for the mind and, you know, for your productivity. And I think a lot of people think, you know, I don't have time. But when you fuel your body right, and when you kind of, you know, you're drinking water, you're getting plenty of sleep, you're eating the right foods, then your productivity increases because your body is primed for it. And then you'll find you have time because you're more efficient in what you do, which saves you time. And then, you know, you have the extra hour up your sleeve from, you know, you don't have brain fog slowing you down in your daily activities. You get things done, and then you've got more time up your sleeve. So, yeah, there are so many different ways.
I know, other than we're just sitting feeling fatigued and unmotivated.
Do you know what? Everybody has time to sit on the couch and watch some telly at the end of the day. Everybody has time to sit on Instagram and see what the rest of the world's doing. And everybody has time to, you know, watch the news thread on Facebook. But no one has time for exercise. And we live in a world where, you know, we have these excuses. I can't afford it. I don't know what to do, all of this kind of stuff. But we're in an age of resource. You can't walk out onto the street and not see a gym within a 200-meter radius. We get free PDFs. So we get, the marketing world has just gone insane with, you know, free content, free videos, YouTube channels. We have unlimited resources for, you know, there are people giving away free sample meal plans and recipes online. Like, there is numerous resources. It's just, we don't action it. So it's really down to perception. If we can change our perceptions of our environment, and rather than becoming a victim of life and thinking life happens to us and I'm stuck in my job and I'm stuck in my circumstances, then that mentality is going to keep you stuck. Whereas when you start to look at the world through a lens of opportunity, the excuses fall away and you realize there is a lot of opportunity to kind of get out of that crappy job, or to exercise and to have more time with friends and family. It is that's a whole nother dimension in itself.
Oh, I know, we can stay here for hours probably talking about all these things because we're so passionate about it. Now, for a person, say, who really needs to make some lifestyle changes, but they really don't know where to start, what would you recommend? Would you recommend to stay in the, I mean, I know there's a lot of free content, but it's just all overwhelming.
Yeah.
So if you are here in our Mandurah community, how would you suggest to a person go and ask the GP, or maybe join a gym, or ask a friend, or maybe Facebook, reach out to people?
All of the above. Seriously, if we sit and think that we are the only person suffering with this problem, then we suffer alone and in silence. And the more we talk about it, even just starting by communicating to your parents or the people in your household or your closest friend network, if you talk about it, you'll probably, very likely, it may surprise you that, you know, your best friend's going through the same thing and struggling in silence as well. Or, you know, if it's your parents, they might, you know, they're very experienced. They might have resources that, you know, they can direct you to. But it starts with communication, because unless you ask, you can never receive. So that is a big one. And then all of the above, you know, I'm in no way against GPs. If you feel like you just need to see someone and you don't have the confidence to discuss things with your friends, any medical professional is going to be able to help. One thing as well, I know a lot of people are stuck within financial barriers, but I had a conversation with a girlfriend the other day who has been under years of, you know, chronic escalating health concerns because she can't afford the financial investment to look into what's going on. But she will happily drop $2,000 on the dog, you know, however much on, like, no number on the baby kind of thing. If her husband got sick, she would happily, like, get into whatever services he needed. But mum would never ever invest that on herself. And the consequence, I had to say to her the other day, we had this conversation 2 years ago. You know, sometimes we've just got to put things into perspective, make the investment, because as you said, the internet is overwhelming. And a lot of the time they are medical professionals that are trained in a particular way. A lot of the time they are people who are jumping on a blog from their own personal experience and are underqualified in the things that they're talking about. There's always new research coming out in the field of health. There are different perspectives, like what we said, every person's unique and individual. So what works for some people might not work for another. And then when you put all of this together, another big thing is a lot of the research around fasting and keto and all of this kind of thing are done on the male population, because you cannot get consistent results when you put females in the study population, because their metabolism is going to change with the hormone fluctuations. So women are left out of these studies, and then we think, oh, there's so much research around keto, there's so much research around fasting, but it's research done on men who don't have those fluctuations. So really we need to kind of sometimes pay the investment to speak with somebody who can speak to you as an individual and guide you with the advice that is specific to you. You know, we do have the resources out there, but sometimes we can become hoarders of information as well.
Oh,
and
that's
you know,
a thing.
They say knowledge is power, but knowledge is potential power. Action is power, right? So sometimes we've just got to make that investment and get real deep and set our path for healing. So yeah, naturopaths, personal trainers, friends, parents, the whole works. Utilize whatever you can.
Yeah, and stay local.
Yes, stay local.
Look
Absolutely.
how many passionate people we have.
That's it. And health isn't just a one thing. It's the pillars. It's exercise, it's nutrition, it's sleep. And we don't have to spend unlimited money on supplements if we've got the basics right. If we can't get the environment right and clean up our toxic exposure, start sleeping more, drink more water, move more frequently, all of these free things that are the pillars to health, we'll spend hundreds of dollars on supplements and, you know, not get any result. Insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, and we can grasp at all these medications, but with an unhealthy environment, we're going to be dependent on them. So always start with the pillars of health, I think, is my motto.
Yeah, I know, it's free.
And they're free,
It's
so why
free.
not?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And there are little changes that you can achieve.
Yeah.
Like right now, put a reminder to take a few deep breaths.
And
Put a reminder to have a few, sips of water.
Yeah. And when we're talking of mental health, emotion is energy in motion. So if you stay stagnant and you think depressed, you think kind of curled over, dark, isolated, kind of hunched and withdrawn and slow. If you think about that, what emotion are you going to have? Stagnant, shallow, isolated emotion. You think of someone who's energized and who's happy and they're moving. Energy in motion, right?
Always
If you
moving,
feel like you're stuck in your mental thoughts, snap out of it. And I'm not saying that in a harsh way of snap out of it, but snap out of it. Do something that's just going to just, in the moment, shake it out. Because
Absolutely.
energy, right? Emotion
Yes.
is energy in motion.
Absolutely. Music is a good one.
Oh,
Put the
absolutely.
music, happy music. So, Jemaine, you mentioned that a lot of your clients come to you with problems coming off the pill, birth control pill,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We're talking about. So, how is that related to mental health?
Yeah. This is a big one, and it's actually quite scary when we start to chunk it down into the research that's available on it. So the pill affects the brain in many ways. In 2016, a groundbreaking research paper came out about the effects of pill in depression, and they had a population of 1 million women that they followed over 13 years, and they wrote the research results came out saying that women on hormonal birth control are at increased risk of depression compared to women who are naturally cycling with their hormones. Those same researchers then brought out a later study which showed that women on hormonal birth control are at a 3 times greater risk of suicide than women who are naturally cycling with their hormones. So when we have a look at what is actually happening with the brain and the chemistry whilst on the pill, I spoke earlier about the stress response. So it's not cortisol that drives our stress, it's cortisol that helps us cope with stress. And when we have a look at the pill, women who are on hormonal birth control, that cortisol production is either blunted or completely switched off, which means that we don't have that hormonal protection from stress, giving us a lower stress threshold. It also changes our structures of the brain. There's a certain portion of the brain that is involved in the emotional processing, and they've actually shown that women on hormonal birth control actually has a structural change within that area that kind of results in the emotional kind of roller coasters that come with being on the pill. And then the third mechanism is that the concept of some of our new age contraceptive pills that we're taking at the moment, and not even, I refer to the pill, but things like the Mirena and, you know, implants as well, they use progestin, which is designed to mimic our hormone progesterone. Now, if you're on hormonal birth control, the role of hormonal birth control is it stops us from ovulating.
Yep.
Now, our natural hormone progesterone, the only way we make progesterone in our body is through ovulation. So if we don't ovulate, we don't make progesterone. Now, these synthetic progestins and progesterone are very similar in nature. I like to look at it as a lock and key. All of our cells have a lock, and then our hormones are the key that have to fit into the lock to be able to cause an effect. So progestins and progesterone is like getting a key cut. It fits into the lock, but sometimes it doesn't really quite open the door. It's not the exact same key that was designed for that lock. So it has a lot of similarities to progesterone. There are a lot of differences as well. And our natural hormone progesterone is what they call a precursor. So when I say a precursor, there's a downstream of, like, it changes its structure through various processes and becomes another hormone, and it kind of changes through this metabolism. Progesterone converts into allopregnanolone, which is a neurosteroid that is really calming on the brain. So if we're not getting exposure to our natural hormone progesterone, then we're not getting that calming effect that happens on the brain. It's a natural anxiolytic, meaning it reduces anxiety. It keeps the brain nice and calm. So if we're robbing women of that hormonal sense of calm and giving them progestins, then they don't have, at that point in our cycle where our hormones drop, where progesterone would naturally be a little bit higher, we're not getting that. And that's where we see that emotional instability that's happening with women as they kind of get like closer to their breakthrough bleed whilst on contraceptives. And there is a lot, you can jump online, there is a lot of research that is now starting to come into fruition in recent decades around depression and hormonal birth control. It is a big, significant factor. When we look at it on a little bit more of a holistic scale, you know, we don't just look at the body as the sum of its parts, it works in integration. Hormonal birth control also directly impacts the gut. And if anyone, you know, the world of gut health has just like blown up in recent years, big time.
Thank God.
Yes, with the research around the microbiome and everything like that. The contraceptive pill, it causes a period of they call it intestinal hyperpermeability, which essentially means leaky gut. And if we have a leaky gut, we have a leaky brain. So our gut, essentially our digestive tract, even though it's inside our body, it's a part of the external environment. It never actually goes through us, but our body is never actually exposed to its contents. And only those micronutrients that kind of seep through the gut lining and get into our bloodstream, like our vitamins and minerals and things that we should be receiving, everything else is still essentially external to the body until we have a leaky gut. And so your gut wall is thinner than a piece of paper. It's paper thin. And on the other side of that are our immature immune cells. And when I say immature immune cells, think of it, the concept of the way vaccinations work. So you get exposed, immature immune cells get exposed to, you know, an infection or something that should not be there. And it basically flags it. So it'll be, okay, I'm an immature immune cell. I've been allocated this particular virus. Whenever this virus comes into the system now, that's my job to mount an attack on it. So these immature immune cells are cells that haven't yet been allocated to anything. They're just sitting on the other side of the gut. And when the gut becomes permeable, bigger proteins start coming through the gut lining that wouldn't usually be there. And so that could be, you know, certain food proteins. It can kind of be anything that we're getting in the diet. So essentially, if we've got a leaky gut, our immature immune cells are tagging all these different proteins and things that shouldn't really be there. And you'll notice you start become becoming a little bit more intolerant or sensitive to foods that you've usually eaten, right? And it's a common thing that I'm hearing these days. Like, I used to be able to eat this and now I can't. Like, I feel really sick, or, you know, I get these reactions. And it's because of exactly that. Every time you eat it now, your immature immune cells have now been allocated that particular protein. So you eat that food, it passes through the gut wall, and the immune system attacks it. And over time, this creates a massive state of inflammation in the body.
Yeah.
And what did we say chronic disease comes from, right? It's that low-grade inflammation that builds up over time until it essentially attacks the rest of the body. And, you know, the pill is responsible for that permeability. That stress hormone cortisol does the same thing. It opens up permeability.
In the gut.
In the gut. Gluten the same. If you look from an evolutionary perspective, the reason we have this mechanism in place is because whenever we've kind of look at food poisoning as an example, if we've eaten a virus or a parasite or a pathogen, a way to flush that from the body is the gut will become permeable, water will flush through, and that's why we get loose bowels whenever we get exposed to food poisoning, right?
Yeah.
Water comes through, flushes it out the digestive system.
Yep.
And that's our body's way of kind of eliminating toxins that we've consumed. But that's the only circumstance that it should be happening. But if we're exposed to processed foods, you know, excess gluten, which is covered in glyphosates and all of these pesticides, you know, we're exposed to stress more frequently, we get this hyperpermeable gut, or this permeable gut, and an aggravated immune response. And then if we go back to having a look at the microbiome, which we just kind of briefly touched on, the microbiome is your kind of environment of bacteria and other species that live in our gut. And when they started researching the Human Genome Project, that's when they started to uncover the importance of the microbiome. And we actually realized we're only 10% of our own human DNA, and we're 90% bacterial DNA. So a lot of our thoughts that we think we have control over and our behaviors are governed by the composition of bacteria in our gut. And as soon as we kind of got that permeable gut lining where there are things crossing in and out that shouldn't be, it changes the, I guess, the nature of the bacteria that we have in there.
So are you saying the gut is connected to the brain?
Absolutely. Yeah. Through various aspects. We have a vagal nerve, which is a nerve that comes through and connects certain points of the face, and it also controls the peristalsis of our gut and our digestive function. And there's a lot of research in that area of that specific connection via the immune system and the various immune responses. And again, certain things that would not usually be in our system that are coming through the gut and, you know, causing inflammation, which then permeates through the brain as well. So that is one aspect of it. And if we're talking about mental health, 70% of your neurotransmitters, your serotonin, is made in your gut. Bacteria play a role in synthesizing some of these neurotransmitters as well, and particular vitamins like your B vitamins and that kind of thing. So when we've got an imbalance in that bacteria, when we've got inflammation in the gut, then of course we're going to feel flat and low and depressed or anxious, because we're losing that capacity for the healthy neurotransmitter synthesis that should be happening in that gut. So there is a lot of ways that the gut and the brain communicate.
Yeah.
And I guess when we're looking at the gut being a pool for those healthy neurotransmitters that keep us happy, then there's a big connection right there.
So how do you find out or recognize that you have problems with your gut? What are the main symptoms to your gut?
If you're bloating, if you've got gas, if your stool, so we're going to talk about poo.
Let's do it.
So your poo, I guess, in itself can be another report card of your health.
Yeah.
So when we're in consultation, we'll typically bring out a Bristol stool chart, and it will be a category like 1 to 7 of different stool textures, whether it's loose and runny or like dry and cracked and brittly, and then our perfect sausage in the middle. We're looking at colour. So yellow can give us indications of what's happening with your liver and your gallbladder and your bile. If there's mucus, that is a direct sign that there is inflammation going on within the body. We can have a look at things such as undigested food, you know, coloration, if it's grey, if it floats, if it sinks, all of these different things tell us a lot about your health. So you might think, oh, you know, I don't get bloating or anything, but if your poo is really bitsy or really slimy, then, or you don't feel completely evacuated and you have to go a couple of times throughout the day, or if you're not pooing at all, if you're not pooing every single day, then we need to do something to work on your gut, because your poo is a part of your detoxification process and allows us to eliminate toxins and used hormones out of our body. And if we're not pooing daily, it leads to an accumulation of toxic load within the body, but it also allows us to recycle hormones back into the system. And that's where we start getting things like PMS and, symptoms of estrogen dominance. The periods might be heavy, they might be painful, you might be PMSy and moody and irritable, because the bacteria, again, in our gut, our microbiome, they have the ability, some of these specific species actually feed off estrogen. So they're going to thrive in an environment that has lots and lots of estrogen. So after our liver has dumped, or our gallbladder has dumped bile into the digestive tract, and that started to create, form the mass that then becomes our stool to pass out, our bacteria have the ability to deconjugate or unbind all these packages of deactivated hormones and send them back into circulation for the body to use. So
it sounds so complicated,
yeah,
to be honest, but what I'm hearing is that we all have to look at our pool.
Bloating, a lot of people live with symptoms for so long that they don't recognize it as being a symptom. And sometimes we think us being at optimal health is here because that's as high as we've ever lifted the bar. And then someone supports us and shows us how high the bar can really go. But without that comparison, you never know. You think that you're at your optimal, right? And when we have a look at the government prescribed diet, where we should, you look at the food pyramid and we've got things like toast and crumpets and all of these things as a primary food group. They're incredibly inflammatory, and gluten in itself causes that intestinal hyperpermeability. And because we've been eating toast and cereal for breakfast since childhood, we've always lived with this underlying inflammation, but never actually been able to identify it because we don't know what it's like not to feel it. So that's where it can become hard, and people go, I don't have digestive issues. But we can almost look at things like arthritis, things like brain fog, things like low libido, anything happening in the body. Majority of the time we can relate it back to the gut. I look at the body as a tree and all the roots are sitting in the gut. And, we've mentioned about the role of neurotransmitters. We've mentioned the role of the immune function. And, if there's something going on in the gut under all that inflammation, it's going to affect the entire body to some degree.
And so to heal the gut, what do we do? Obviously, it's good to have a consultation with a naturopath. Or can we just look at our diet?
Absolutely. So I don't want to say a particular diet, because depending on where you're at, if you're somebody who has intestinal hyperpermeability and you are reactive, foods that are typically healthy can be quite reactive for you. So don't take, a diet per se as a grain of salt and apply it to everything. You're going to be unique. But there's a lot of research to show that if you eat upwards of 40 different plant varieties within a week, then you're going to have the most diverse microbiome that you can have. They're associated with the healthy microbiome. So that sounds daunting, thinking 40 different plant foods, but a red apple and a green apple are two different varieties. If you have your olive oil, if you have, almonds in a salad one day and cashews in a salad the next day, and just getting that variety, you're going to be getting all these different fibers that feed the bacteria. So since the microbiomes came into discussion, everyone's pretty well aware of probiotics, and everyone just takes a generic probiotic. But bacteria only pass through our system and last for about 24 hours. You actually have to have the food available to feed them, so then while they're in the digestive system for that 24 hours, they can repopulate and start to grow, and then we can start to feed the environment. So if you've got a terrible diet but you're taking probiotics, you're wasting your money. You need to have all the plant foods coming in through the diet to feed that bacteria and help them thrive.
Does it have to be organic food, or
organic is best, but it's not always realistic. But you can go onto the website of the Environmental Working Group, or EWG. They are a global organisation, and they actually supply the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So they supply lists of the food, like the 12 foods that are most highest in pesticides, and that's constantly updated. So if you can't afford to live organic, then at least opting for those 12 foods to be organic out of your selection. Generally, they're the kind of softer skin foods, like your blueberries, or your berries kind of thing. just because obviously like they can become more penetrated compared to like a banana per se.
Yeah.
But yeah, plant food and diversity. And I'm not saying vegan or vegetarian. I'm just saying if you have a plant-based diet and then you supplement it with your protein and animal source, then that is going to feed a nice healthy microbiome. And different fibers, getting, nuts and seeds. If you're having gut issues, slippery elm is a nice mucilage kind of fiber that you can buy from the health food store that just kind of causes this beautiful mucus layer down the gut lining. It just helps it heal and seal.
So what is it again?
Slippery elm is it's a type of fiber, like a powdered kind of fiber. It's quite, but
I'll ask Jemaine to spell it a bit later, and I'll put it in the comments maybe if anyone's interested. Yeah.
But yeah, so starting with the diet and obviously stress management, because I mentioned cortisol is another one that opens the gut permeability.
Yes.
So if you're having gut issues, I hate to say it because a lot of people are going to cringe, but gluten-free is going to be the number one pinnacle, because gliadin, which is the protein in gluten, causes that intestinal permeability as well. Yeah. Gluten-free, plant-based and stress management are going to help you start to reheal and seal that gut. If you've got a leaky gut and you're taking all these different supplements and probiotics and all the other stuff, until you heal that gut lining, a lot of it is going to waste, and you're still exposing that immature immune system to things that they're going to react to. So keep it simple in the short term and just focus on that healing and regeneration, and then go in a little bit more depth where you can start the full-on repair of the microbiome per se.
Wow.
It's quite complex, but sticking to the basics. The world of nutrition is so incredibly overwhelming. One thing that I find a lot is people will go, oh, I eat this and I react to it, or it causes me bloating, or it makes me feel like I get abdominal pain when I eat it. And then I ask the question, so how often do you have it? They have it for breakfast every day. But they've identified that it causes them to bloat and get gassy and everything, but they still continue to eat it. So your body is going to be your best GP. So if you know that something is causing you grief, if you know that you get constipated when you eat gluten, or you get diarrhea when you eat dairy, take that as your diagnosis. Like, you're reacting, it's causing inflammation. Make that call yourself. You don't need to pay somebody to tell you to remove that from your diet when your body is telling you, I'm not coping with this right now.
I know, it's funny how we know all of this. We know what lifestyles we should be all doing, getting enough sleep, eating the good foods, the variety of foods, real whole foods, and spending time in nature and relaxing, and we know all that, but we still just manage not to do it. Well, how come? Where does this come from? Is it sort of a mindset we have to get into, or bring more awareness? Because we are so busy that everything is just done, dinner done, wash the dishes, relax time in front of the TV, going to bed, and then rat race again every day.
Absolutely.
With my kids, like I started teaching them, because I'm just sick of the mess. Anyway, it's like awareness is noticing.
Yeah.
So if you walk along the corridor and you see there's a dirty sock on the floor, it doesn't, it takes you
pick it up.
It takes you 5 seconds to pick it up because you noticed it, and put it away.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's noticing. It's awareness. Same with the body.
And what happens, that's a great analogy to put it that way, actually, because what happens if you notice the sock and don't do anything, and the next day it's a t-shirt, the next day it's a pair of pants, and you accumulate this junk, and then you're living in this uncomfortable and dirty mess. And it's the same when we don't have that self-awareness. One symptom comes up and we ignore it, and then another symptom comes up and we ignore it, and then another and then we're living in this. No wonder anxiety is such a big thing. What makes you anxious, right? Clutter. And, we become cluttered in our own body. There's just so much going on in our brain and our mind that we just feel so anxious and on edge. And if we can create awareness in, our body and how our body should be functioning and when things change, then that in itself is the perfect medicine. And I find the biggest healing journey that I have with people is typically within their first month of treatment with me, when we start doing diet diaries or menstrual tracking, and they go, wow, I didn't act like within 1 week, people are like, I'm not bloating anymore. I'm actually sleeping. But people didn't realize they had sleep issues until they started to have a
Really?
look at what times they were going to bed and waking up and how they felt when they woke up.
Uh-huh.
Or people didn't realize they were bloating until they started to actually have a look at the foods that they were eating. And when you become in touch with your body is designed to keep us safe. Like, again, from an evolutionary perspective, we didn't have all the technology that we have now. We had to rely on the information that our body gave us to know that a plant was poisonous and that we should stay away from it. Or, to know that we were lacking something and we needed to hunt an animal to satisfy our hunger and give us warmth. And that was our kind of primary GP back then. But now we just have information and resources at our fingertips that we just disconnect from that internal monologue.
Absolutely. And then we rely on same GPs and doctors, we think, they're going to fix the issue. If it's going to get too bad, I'm going to go to the GP, they'll fix it for me. They'll give me a pill.
But there's not a pill for an ill. And like I keep saying, like, if the environment is not conducive to health, you can have all the pills in the world and spend thousands on prescriptions, but you're going to be dependent on them because there's never going to be a point where your body is in an environment to cope without it. So, yes, it can be good in a short term, but if you're having to take medications for the rest of your life, then you know that you haven't found the root cause. Like, we can look at a symptom. Anxiety is a symptom. Depression is a symptom. Obesity is a symptom. Like, all of these things that we say are diseases and we diagnose as a disease, it's actually a symptom of what else is going on. If it was the disease itself, then taking a pill for it would fix it and make it go away, and then we can take the pill away and the problem's gone. But we're fixing a symptom. So as soon as we stop taking that pill, the underlying disease is still there.
Yeah.
Right? We've just masked it because we're just fixing that one symptom.
Yeah. So you're right. Disconnected totally from our body. I think we all should start just looking in.
Turn inwards. All the answers we've ever needed are in. We are such in a world where we rely on social media and external stimulus to help us feel good. And this is one thing that I just think the younger generation, it would just be, if as adults we can start to teach the younger generation to just feel comfortable in their own skin, to enjoy time by themselves, to laugh and not have to worry if someone else is going to have an opinion on if they look silly, or people are entitled to their opinions, and you can't change people's opinions. You can't change their thoughts or their perceptions of what's happening in the current time. You can't change the environment. You can't change the political views. What you can change is how you show up in the world and how you respond to it. And when we kind of take it into that deeper level, it sounds, until you've kind of done the self-work, it sounds very easy for you to say, but everything in life is a choice. And I look at the word responsibility and I break it into two. Responsibility, right? So when I say life, so when I say everything that happens in life is a choice, we choose our ability to respond in any situation. So if someone says something that is reactive to us, we can choose how we respond to that. We can choose how we let it affect us. And a lot of people take what somebody else has said, which might be because they're dealing with their own personal problems in their household and they're taking it out on you.
Absolutely.
And we have the ability to choose how that affects us, but a lot of people take that to heart, allow that to become their stress, and triggers the internal stress response. So when we start anticipating the conversation that we're going to have with our boss, or anticipating the fight we're going to have with our husband when he gets home, we're living in that stress response before we've even gotten to the situation, before we even know that that's going to happen. And, it sounds like the most tangible way that I can give you as an example of this is your body. So when you think about food and you think about your favorite food, right? You start salivating, you get like juicy in the mouth, your tummy starts rumbling just from a thought.
Yes.
Same as when you think about sex, right?
Yeah.
You thinking about sex or watching porn or whatever it may be, or your husband has a little flirt with you, it creates, it lubricates your genital area. You feel a little bit kind of horny and ramped up for it, right? It increases the libido. So thoughts and the way we are perceiving our environment changes the physiology within our body, and that is just two examples.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So when we look at stress and our perceptions of what's happening in any given moment, it is changing our biochemistry within that second. So we have to make the choice, do I let this affect me, Or do I accept that that is something that they're going through, that is their own, it doesn't need to affect me? And when you can, and sometimes we do need a little bit of support to kind of do this, right? To kind of build this conscious understanding and awareness. And we naturally revert back to old patterns, and the brain follows the path where it's most comfortable, the path where it's been before, right? So it's very easy to go back into old behaviors. But the greatest way to change is consistency and repetition. And the more we do things that feel uncomfortable, we get to a point where they're no longer uncomfortable and they become comfortable. And sometimes that journey of self-awareness, it feels uncomfortable at first, but every conversation you have or every argument you think, is this mine or is this theirs? Do I need to let this affect me, or can I walk away from it? What's the outcome if I react in this way? What's the outcome if I react in this way? And when we get into that self-awareness, we then start to realize within any given moment, we can change the path of our life for better or for worse. We can change the path of our health for better or for worse. So yeah, the power of thought is just an incredible thing, and perception. Absolutely.
Perception, exactly. So it's all about just being aware, checking in words, as you say, as often as you can during the day, and always thinking, these are the choices. Which ones am I going to take and why? Oh, Jemaine, I think we can talk for hours. Lovely, and I'm sure we will.
Yes, let's catch up again. I love this.
All right. I think we'll be wrapping up soon. I do have a couple final questions for you. There's so much great information we received today. I think we will have to watch this video a couple times to actually really go through so much important info. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
My 3 final questions I ask every speaker, and the first one is, what do you think are 3 most important values that we should embrace or teach our kids to create the happy, fit community?
Yeah, absolutely. Self-love, number 1, right? How could anyone love you when you don't love yourself? The way you treat yourself and the words you say to yourself. Set the standard for how others are going to treat you as well. So if you've got a lot of negative dialogue, you're the only person that you spend all day, every day, 24/7, 365 a year with. And if it's negative self-talk all the time, that's like having a bully following you around and calling you this and calling you that every day for your entire life. And people don't realize how massive and dramatically that affects us. It affects the way we show up in our relationship. If we don't have body confidence, how can we effortlessly be ourselves and give our all to the ones that we love, right? So yes, it's important to love others, but you can't pour from an empty cup. You need to first love yourself, inspire your children in that way, and love your husband in the way that is your ultimate you, and he will love you more. Like, it's just
that's beautiful.
Yes, self-love all the way.
So that's a 1.
Number 1. Okay.
You got 2 more, girl.
Number 2, when I mentioned before, perception is everything. Our reality is legitimately that. It's only our perception of reality. There is no such thing as a reality, because my reality would be different to your reality. In any second, our brain or our nervous system is exposed to 2 million sensory parts of information, and we can only focus on a cluster of 4, about 6 different stimulus in any given second. And that's a big chunk from 2 million stimulus that are coming in from the environment to actually only focusing on 64 of that. And it's actually 0.032% of reality, what we perceive. So if you have a look at that, your perception of reality is only 0.032% of what's actually going on in your surroundings.
But your loves her research, oh my God.
then you realize that, we're not seeing the bigger picture at all. And if you're focusing on the negative stuff, if that 64 bits of information you're receiving is only focused on the negative things of why me and why did he do this and blah, 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 and blah, 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 then you're going to live in a really negative reality. But if this is where gratitude and the whole evolution of gratitude came about, right? If you're grateful, then it changes where you're focusing. That 64 bits of information that we're receiving become positive because they're things that we're happy to receive, and it changes the moment in any given time. So self-love, your perception is your reality. Change your perception, reshape your reality. And I guess the third one is that life is limitless. Like, up until Usain Bolt ran the fastest mile, it was impossible to do. And no one could do it. But then as soon as he did it, and he showed society what is possible.
Yeah.
Every race after that, people were breaking the record continuously. So don't ever let anybody tell you that it's not doable, it's not possible, you can't, because no one's ever done it.
That you've got limits.
That there are limits, because everything is limitless. Like, you could be the next record breaker. Like, there are no limits in life. So they're my 3.
Wow, amazing. This has been so good. All right. Oh, one more.
Okay.
What advice would you give your 16-year-old self to be happy?
Oh, there is so
Your
much.
personal,
Yeah. For me, it is self-love. You know, it's so well and good to preach all of this stuff, but I'm sure you can appreciate, as a woman, we all have our own inner dialogue where we critique. And for me to be able to look at a 16-year-old girl and just say nothing else matters, your happiness is the reason you're here on this earth, and find your purpose and live truly to that. And I guess it encompasses all 3 of what I just said, really. Like, create your own reality. The world is limitless, and just love yourself and have faith in the direction that you're going. I would just love to have heard that as a kid.
Yeah. Did you know what she wanted? Your 16-year-old
No,
self?
I was always a lone ranger. I kind of came from a split family and moved all over the countryside. So I think there was no such thing as someone being in your life for a decent amount of time, and you kind of create your own thought patterns and belief systems around that, right? So I think to realize that you are so loved. Like, even for the people out there who say, I've got nobody, you have yourself. And the more you start to love yourself, you become a human magnet, and you start drawing people in. Become your own human magnet and love yourself, because we live in a world where people are craving love. And if you are radiating love because you just feel so loved within yourself, then you attract a community of people that are going to continue to lift you up. So,
So look in the mirror, tell yourself how beautiful and amazing you are. Last one.
Yeah.
What are the future plans? Have you got any projects? Now you.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Now
How
I'm
can
all
we
in on
find
my
you?
own thing.
Go on.
Okay.
Tell us.
So womenshealthnaturopath.com is my website. My biggest presence is on Instagram, which is Jemaine.Finlay_naturopath. I hate having a long name. There's like nearly every letter of the alphabet, but that's where you'll find a lot of my content. It was only last week that I have separated to go all in on my own venture. So in the coming month, I'm going to be launching a program for women with PCOS. And it's going to be a combination of the biochemistry and the physical diet, lifestyle, supplements and everything else, to traditionally treat PCOS. But there's also a masculine, feminine immersion within that as well. So I'm going to kind of integrate a lot of the emotional physiology and psychology along with the physical kind of diet, lifestyle, traditional methods. And, within that program is going to be bolstering fertility, working on acne, weight loss, and all of those kind of characteristic symptoms that women with PCOS live with. Within saying that, it kind of is going to be a bit of a hormone rehab. So there's some introductory phases that any women with hormonal issues or concerns can go into.
Right.
Yeah. But then other than that, the last 12 months I've been consulting online. You can book via my website, via my Facebook page, or via my Instagram page.
Just click your message?
Yeah.
Or is there
it's just literally a calendar link. You can book straight in for your appointment.
Oh, good.
And we catch up on Zoom. So, you don't have to get dressed or pretty yourself up to go out into the public. You can just sit in your PJs and roll out of bed or stay in bed if you really like, and we can just have a good old chat over Zoom. So consulting one-on-one, program soon to come, but I'm a big educator, so you'll see a lot of free content around videos, education and that kind of thing on my social media platforms.
Yeah, we received a lot of education today. I reckon my head is just like, I'm blown away, all that knowledge, but really it all comes down to the gut, and the lifestyle choices we make. Really, these are just things we need to really start bringing awareness around, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Simple things. Right, so Instagram normally is where you most...
Yeah, at this stage, that's going to continue to grow. Even this week, it's kind of started to cascade a little deeper, but Instagram's always a good platform to find me on. It's where I spend most of my time.
You're on Facebook though, too?
I am on Facebook. Yeah. Again, it's just Jemaine Finlay Naturopath on Facebook.
Yep, great. Okay, so please reach out, guys, if you have any questions. or consultations.
Yeah.
If we go, I'm sure Jemaine can help and would be absolutely happy to help.
Always happy.
Oh, I want to acknowledge you, Jemaine. You are just a treasure, a treasure to find with all your knowledge and your beautiful infectious smile. You're so good. I'm so lucky that I reached out and you just said, yeah.
I'm just so grateful to be a part of it. It's such an incredible project that you're kicking off the ground here.
Thank you. Yeah,
to be invited is an absolute honour.
Beautiful. So we're just spreading the message on to everyone. Just really look inside and let's
turn inwards.
Yeah,
everything you ever needed is all in here.
All in here, and we have a community that can help you with it. You know, whether it's
turn inwards but reach outwards. Like use your community and your friends and your family and
who can
communicate, create conversation,
and who can probably hold you accountable.
Absolutely,
right? It does help a lot.
Yeah, you're never alone.
Oh, great. So we know where to find you. The message is out. So much information. Check it out. Please, please, please remember to share these guys. You know, sharing is caring. And you never know who you can positively impact with just a click of a button. Really appreciate that, guys. All right. I think we're done. So we'll see you next time. Should we do a little quick dance?
Okay.
Oh, I didn't read the memo. She didn't get the memo. Never mind. We'll see how we go. But for now, thanks so much for joining and watching, and we'll see you next time when we talk more.
Oh, yeah.
Let us know what you want to know. Or no, here, whatever. Cheers, guys.
See ya.
Bye.